Somewhere under the calm gray surface of the North Atlantic, more water is pouring over a hidden cliff than spills from every river on the planet combined. It's freezing, it's silent, and it's completely invisible. And it may be the only reason Western Europe isn't buried under ice. Right now, between Iceland and Greenland, the tallest, most powerful waterfall on Earth is falling through total darkness. It drops 11,500 feet. It moves up to 175 million cubic feet of water every second, and no one has ever seen it. Here's the strange part. This waterfall isn't hidden in some remote canyon or buried deep in a cave. It's out in the open ocean, under a stretch of water that ships cross all the time. Sailors have passed directly over it for centuries and felt nothing. No white water, no spray, no sound. So how do you hide the biggest waterfall on the planet in plain sight? The answer is that this waterfall is underwater, all of it. It's called the Denmark Strait cataract, and it sits in a narrow channel between Iceland and Greenland. And to understand it, you have to throw out almost everything you think a waterfall is. On land, a waterfall is simple. Gravity grabs the water, pulls it over a cliff, and it crashes down through the air. But down here, there's no air. There's only water falling through more water. So, what makes it fall at all? The answer is one of the most important forces on Earth, and almost nobody talks about it. It's density. Up in the Arctic, the ocean surface freezes, and when seawater turns to ice, something sneaky happens. The ice pushes the salt out, dumping it back into the water below. That leaves the water around it colder and saltier than anything nearby. Cold, salty water is heavy water, and heavy water does one thing: it sinks. Now picture that happening across an entire polar sea. Enormous volumes of this dense, frigid water pile up in the northern basins, pressing down, building up, looking for a way out. The only thing holding it back is a giant underwater mountain range that runs between Greenland and Scotland. That ridge is like the rim of a bathtub, and the Denmark Strait is the lowest notch in that rim, about 600 meters down. So the heavy water does the only thing it can. It pours over the edge. But it doesn't crash. It can't. It's surrounded on all sides by the resistance of the ocean itself. So instead of falling, it creeps. This monster descends the slope at about half a meter per second. That's slower than you walk. Think about that. The most powerful waterfall on Earth is falling in slow motion. A silent, freezing river, sliding down an invisible mountain in the dark. And the scale of it is hard to hold in your head. That drop of 11,500 feet is more than 3 times the height of the tallest waterfall on land. The sheet of falling water is 100 miles wide, and the volume, by some estimates, it carries between 20 and 40 times the combined flow of every river emptying into the Atlantic. All of it moving in near total silence, where no light has ever reached. But it gets stranger, because this water doesn't fall straight down. The Earth is spinning underneath it. That spin creates a force that shoves moving water sideways, and it pushes this entire cascade hard against the Greenland side of the channel. The overflow banks up so severely that it rides almost a kilometer higher on one wall than the other, a waterfall tilted by the rotation of the planet. And as it slides down, it doesn't stay neat. It grinds against the warmer water above it and tears it apart, spinning off giant, invisible whirlpools and internal waves in the pitch black. This churning actually pulls in more water as it goes, so the deeper it falls, the bigger it grows. So here's the obvious question. If this thing is so enormous, how did we not know about it for almost all of human history? Because it gave us nothing to find, no roar to hear, no foam to see. Hundreds of meters of ocean muffled it completely. The first hints came from oceanographers over a century ago who suspected dense water was spilling south through these straits, but couldn't prove it. For decades, it was just a theory. The deep ocean crushes instruments, and we simply didn't have the tools to go look. Then, in 1969, a scientist named L.V. Worthington decided to measure the beast directly. He lowered an array of 30 reinforced current meters into the water just below the sill. It should have worked. It didn't. The forces down there tore his instruments apart. 29 of the 30 were destroyed or knocked out. One survived. And that single lucky machine sent back something nobody expected. The water wasn't flowing like a steady river at all. It was coming in violent bursts. Massive pulses of dense water, rolling over the edge every few days, like a heartbeat. The largest waterfall on Earth doesn't pour. It throbs. And even after all that, we still had the story wrong. For years, scientists were sure they knew where all this water came from. One current, running down the coast of Greenland, feeding the whole thing. Then, in 2004, Icelandic researchers noticed something that didn't fit in their data. There was another current down there, a deep, hidden one, running along the north of Iceland that nobody had ever mapped. When it was confirmed and named the North Icelandic Jet, the implication was staggering. This unknown current supplies up to half of the densest water in the entire cascade. Half of the engine was completely invisible to science until this century, and we still don't fully understand where it comes from. Now, here's why any of this should matter to you, even if you never go near the Arctic. When all that cold water sinks in the north, it leaves a kind of vacuum behind, and that vacuum pulls warm water up from the south to replace it. That warm water has a name, you know, the Gulf Stream, the same current that keeps Western Europe mild instead of frozen. So this silent waterfall isn't just a curiosity. It's one of the main pumps driving the ocean's global circulation, the system that moves heat around the entire planet. Cities stay warm, weather patterns hold their shape, and it all leans in part on this invisible cascade in the dark. Which brings us to the part scientists are genuinely worried about. This whole thing runs on cold, salty, heavy water. But the Greenland ice sheet is melting, pouring fresh water into these seas. Fresh water is lighter, and lighter water doesn't sink as easily. Weaken the sinking, and you weaken the pump. Researchers are racing to figure out how close that edge might be, because if this overflow ever slowed or stalled, the ripple effects on global weather could be severe. The most powerful waterfall on Earth is also one of the most fragile. So think about where you're sitting right now. The weather outside your window, the mild or bitter turn of your seasons, is quietly tied to a river of freezing water falling through the dark, in a place no human eye has ever seen. It has been falling since before we built a single city. It is falling right now, in complete silence, as you breathe. And most people will live their entire lives without ever knowing it's there.